It's finally happening. After Rachel and me have been trying to get this into existence, we are finally here with The Going Concern. The Going Concern is a fortnightly talk show podcast where we answer your questions. Every 2 weeks, we hang around these microphones to talk about all your wonderful questions or issues, which include the weird, the wacky, and the very much wonderful. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Patrick, a chartered accountant and owner of an accounting firm called Boffix, a QuickBooks certified trainer with a fancy new logo, and that QuickBooks chap on YouTube. And joining me, as always, is the co-host, the one and the only, Rachel. How you doing, Rachel?
Hi, everybody. Aaron finally agreed to host a talk show with me, so I'm over the moon. My name is Rachel, and I am a TEDx speaker. I'm an author. I'm a business owner, but most importantly for today, I am an accountant. I'm the founder of Accountant She, and I am the director of Strivex, which is a wonderful, if I say so myself, female-led accountancy practice. We've got an absolute cracker in store for you today. But first of all, let's work out how this works. So first things first, we are live to the world at our regular time of 12:30 p.m. UK time every other Thursday. So if you're listening to this back at a later time, then why not think about popping it in your diary, joining us live, or subscribing to our platform so you can get a little nudge and a reminder when we go live. You can get involved while we're chatting and ask us anything on the chat box. This show really is for you guys. So this is an access all areas session where you can ask us anything. We are now live on the podcasting services around the globe, so feel free to subscribe on your podcasting service of choice. So a quick overview of some of the questions that we've got in store for you on today's show. I've got to say, you guys did not disappoint us. We've got questions ranging from tax all the way through to TikTok. The response has honestly been incredible. So thank you, firstly, so much to everybody that sent in questions. I actually don't think they were all from Aaron's Nana, so it's even better. So Aaron, we're opening the mailbag. Are you ready for the first question?
I was born ready, Rachel. Let's get on with this. I'm excited. Come on, first question.
Okay. So first question is actually a really lovely place to start for people that don't know both of us or either of us. So how and why did you get into accountancy?
Oh, what a great question to start with. I mean, it's how long we got? We've only got an hour. So I might have to give the smaller version, the quick and easy version for this one. But it is important. It is also important that we let the viewers know and the community know that why we should be doing a talk show, what gives us the right to do it. And I think that is basically down to kind of our history and everything that goes with it. So Rachel, do you want to go first? You go with your story, and then that'll give me some indication of how long we've got, and then I can tailor mine accordingly.
I'd love to. So how and why? I'll start with the how. The how is a really nice story, actually, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So I did not go to university, and I think we both were part of the generation of people who really didn't feel like not going to university was an option. And I didn't go. I took an apprenticeship straight from school and grew to the point where now we hire our own apprentices and guide other people through that journey as well. I think the why is I've always loved helping people. I've also always loved numbers, and accountancy is such an incredible way to help people. And I think that's something that's so often overlooked. So accountancy, like people come to us stressed, anxious, worried. They feel like they're in a muddle. They love what they do, but really struggle with that part of their business. And it's something that's so simple, and it's such an amazing platform to really help people, which isn't often spoken about. So that's my how, and that's my why. What about you, Aaron?
Well, funnily enough, I didn't want to be an accountant when I grew up. You know, you would have thought that every time I woke up as a little kid, I was thinking, can't wait to get to this accounting malark. This is going to be what I want to do for the rest of my life. But no, I completely fell into it. I was doing work experience, and I was also told I didn't have to do my second work experience. So my first one was in a bank randomly, And then my second one I didn't have to do because I was doing Duke of Edinburgh at the time. And then I was thinking to myself, you know what? I really enjoyed work experience. So I looked for voluntary work experience.
Yeah.
And my auntie was like, why don't you come and work for the firm I work for, accounting firm? So I went there and I did my first bit of accountancy led experience and see what it was all like. And I was like, quite enjoy this. It's quite good. And they practically offered me a job there and then, saying if at the end of your GCSEs and stuff, if you want to try and be an accountant, the opportunity is yours of apprenticeship and all that lot. So I thought, why not? That seems like for me. And then literally on the first day that I went to AAT, and I was like so in awe with everything that we could learn as being an accountant, and as Rachel perfectly put there, the chance for us to help people and everything else that goes with it, then I just fell in love with it. And then it's literally gone from there. So got my AAT qualification, got my ACA, so my chartered accountancy qualification as well, got my practicing certificate, which I'm very, very proud of, and became a QuickBooks trainer as well. So what I wanted to be as a kid was to be a teacher, and then I became a QuickBooks trainer instead. So I'm kind of there.
Amazing.
I kind of reached that little kid in me would be kind of a little bit proud there. And it just went from strength to strength. But exactly what Rachel says, it's all about wanting to help people. Like, there's nothing better than a client coming along in an absolute mess, or a client coming along just confused or a little bit like apprehensive about starting their own business and starting to make those dreams come true. And yeah, we get to help them realize those dreams, and hopefully, me and Rachel are from the same kind of idea when it comes to accountancy. We want our clients to really prosper and really grow, and nothing prouder than having a business that suddenly out there and it's changing the world and everything else, and that's what it's all about.
It's amazing. So have you got the next question for us?
I certainly have, Rachel. Okay, so the next question, really straight and simple. How can I get a job after ACC Part qualified? Ooh, go on, Rachel. What do you think to that one?
Good question. So I'd say firstly, becoming ACCA Part qualified is such a big milestone. I think it can feel like such a long journey to even get to that point. So I think with anything, and so often, especially in our industry, because it's super competitive, really, really different. Some people really struggle to get jobs or to get promotions. I think first things first, like, it's a confidence thing, and becoming Part qualified is incredible. And you already, you have an asset there. Sorry, pun intended. You have an asset there to use and to leverage. And I think on our YouTube channel, we did a video which was how to get a job in accountancy with no experience. And the key thing that came from that video was, if you are watching this talk show, you're sat in your lunch break with your headphones in, and you already have something that other people don't have, and that's the enthusiasm, the passion, the desire to move forward, keep progressing, keep evolving. And it's those bits that, as business owners and people who hire accountants, I can teach you tax, I can teach you bookkeeping, Aaron can teach you QuickBooks. I can't teach you to be enthusiastic and to do extracurricular activities and to take your exams and really, really study. And I think so often it can be so overwhelming approaching a situation like trying to get a job. It's really easy to forget that the job application process, and then further than that, the interview process, is a two-way street. And it's more about you finding somewhere that meets your needs as much as it is the other way around. And I think a change in that mindset will really, really help you. What about you, Aaron? What would be your top tips?
Yeah, I think everything you said there I completely mirror. One of the things that, and this is why this format works so well, because not only are we both accountants, me and Rachel, but we're also business owners. So we've also had to apply for jobs in the past, and also we've had to interview people and kind of understand and try and find the best person for our business so that we can grow and prosper as well. And I think one of the things I would highly recommend here is just being prepared in that interview process. So I suppose you've got to get to the interview process first, and what Rachel's just said there about being enthusiastic, getting everything down, is going to be your best way. But when you're in that interview process, be prepared for an awkward question that could come your way. Is, how come you're only part qualified? Why didn't you stay on that long to complete your qualification? And you'll probably have a wonderful answer already lined up, and you'll probably have a reason that's there, but be prepared for that. Because at the end of the day, as as we're looking to employ someone, being part qualified is amazing, and that's definitely a plus for you. But also the fact that it's part qualified will raise questions as to why, how, everything else, what happened. So be prepared for that one, and be completely honest with it. Explain your situation, and you should be absolutely fine. But don't get caught up by that question. Don't let that be a question that suddenly is out of the blue and you've not prepared your answer for it. Because I certainly, as someone to employ someone, will be asking that question. So bring it in there. And I think as long as with that answer, you show your enthusiasm, you show where it all went right, what was happening, and just be brutally honest as to why, for whatever reason, you've moved on. I think that's
so. Ijaz on YouTube has asked, "Is that you answering my question?" Sorry, I'm a bit late. So all of the questions that come through are actually anonymous. So I don't know if it was your question, but the question was, "How can I get a job after ACCA part qualified?" So if that was your question, then yes. Okay, so do you want me to fire the next question at you?
Let's go for it.
I think might be my favorite. Like actually my favorite, and I'm really glad that Aaron has to answer it before me. So the question is, what is the weirdest query you've ever had? Apart from me asking to do a talk show, what was the weirdest query you've ever had?
Well, being an accountant, we get weird and wonderful questions on a daily basis. And also, to clarify that as well, some clients will be coming up to you and they think that they're asking these weird and wonderful questions, and actually the same questions we get asked day in, day out, day in, day out. But yeah, when it comes to weirdest one, I'm trying to wrap my brain into what really was that one that stands out. But I've had some crackers over the years, and obviously for confidential reasons, I can't explain too much of what the scenario was. But yeah, we've been asked for questions that just you wouldn't ask anyone else. So why are you asking your accountant this particular question? And I think it's that perception of what clients think accountants for, and it's great that we're being asked all wonderful and wild questions, but sometimes you really do kind of wonder what is the perception, and then it's all about trying to explain to a client and understand their client's needs and trying to figure it out. But yeah, my weirdest, like literally the weirdest question that's come my way has always been around kind of clients just asking just stuff that they perceive that is revolving around accountants and what their job is, and I've never been able to give them a satisfying answer other than we're not the people that you should be asking these questions for. And pushing it from there. I'm trying to give an example. I don't give it away and don't get myself into trouble. I
think for me, this question really highlighted exactly what you said, in that like we get asked so many questions. Like I actually don't feel like questions are weird anymore. And the relationships that we build are such close relationships. And actually people really gravitate to businesses like yours and like ours, because when you break down all of the job titles and qualifications, we're small business owners as well. So if you send me a voice note asking, do you use Canva Premium or do you just like wing it with the free version? I'm more than happy to answer that question. Or if you say, I've just got some inheritance, what should I do with it? I'll pass you on to our financial advisor. And I think it's so lovely. And I think it is that closeness and that intimacy that you very often might not find in bigger, more corporate businesses, where people just want someone to ask those questions to. And it also highlights the variety of clients. I think so Aaron over at Bofix, and we don't have a speciality. We have groups of people that we love working with, but we take everybody, and that's all, like every single job, business, online, product-based, brick and mortar, like you name it, we've probably got a client, all the way from people that are pitching to go on Dragon's Den, all the way through to people that are in boy bands. And nothing's weird anymore would be my answer to that. Nothing is weird anymore.
Yeah, I do completely see what you're saying there. And you're right, we do kind of answer every single question that comes at us. There are still some questions where you wouldn't ask, you wouldn't ask your partner what the answer or the question of that's going to be. So, that they're the only times where it just get a little bit kind of strange. And I think the only time that happens is when the client's so enthusiastic about it, and we love enthusiasm, and we love that kind of that whole manner of which it is. But sometimes that enthusiasm can be where it gets a little bit close to close to being that little bit crazy and a little bit weird. But yeah, I mean, we'll always try and give a response, but sometimes it's yeah. Again, without giving any particulars away, it is a weird and wonderful world to be an accountant these days. But like Rachel said, though, that is the beauty. It is the fact that we get involved in so much of a business aspect now. Like when I don't know about you, Rachel, but when I first started as an accountant and I started being, the apprentice and working my way up and everything else, it was very much, okay, you're just doing the numbers and get on with the numbers and be done with it. But now, if you're looking to get a work in accountancy and you're wanting to, drum up some experience and you want to start looking at becoming an accountant, then you're going to have a great surprise when it comes to the variation of the work and what's involved and everything else. Now,
and like we said about helping people,
yeah.
Like we as a small firm that offers, and we really do offer like a holistic approach to accountancy.
Yep.
So our process notes are that every single, like, we're not a conveyor belt of work. We're not a conveyor belt of accounts. Like each client is a real person with a family and a reason, and like their reason is really, really important to us. And it's that reason that's at the heart of every single set of accounts. So every single set of accounts is person-centered. It's what is the business owner's desired outcome from this set of accounts? Is it that they want to get a mortgage in the next 3 years? Is it that really they need to wealth plan or do wealth management? And I would really, really encourage people that even if you feel like you don't fall into the stereotypical impression of what an accountant is, to really explore that and to reach out to people like me and Aaron and ask questions and find out, like, okay, well, I'm not the stereotype, but does that mean that I could be the new stereotype? I would really, really encourage you to do that. And coming on to stereotypical accountants is a great segue into the next question, which is, Aaron.
Oh, yeah. So what do you think about TikTok? I'm glad you're answering this one actually first, because yeah.
I'm scared of TikTok. I really, really like feel like it's another planet, and I'm just scared of it. I'm really scared. I don't understand it. I've got the app on my phone, and it terrifies me, to be honest. What about you, Aaron?
Well, I tried. So, I mean, please don't go looking into this and try and look through the archives, but I have tried the whole let's do a dance in front of a screen to a popular song and try and make it related to accountancy. Funnily enough, dancing around isn't the best way of showing off your accounting skills. So I learned that.
Well, you've obviously never been on the Accountancy Instagram page.
Yes, you are definitely there showing off a few skills here and there, a few shapes and making us all, everyone else, look bad. But in the whole, it's not quite what it's supposed to be. So one thing we definitely learned from TikTok, and I think this is where this question can be quite useful for people to understand, is there's new social media platforms happening all the time. And some of them are going to go ballistic like TikTok has. And some of them are, you're going to invest a lot of time in and they're going to die by the wayside. And that's just life. And you've just got to accept that. But when it comes to TikTok itself, it has its own style. It has its own approach, and even that's evolving as more people are coming into the platform for the first time, and there's the engagement and everything that comes with it. And I think for us, we're slowly but surely starting to go back into that space, and our way or approach now is that let's just reuse content that we know is doing well on other social platforms, we know is engaging enough to be that short, sharp, to the point element, and let's just try and see how it goes through. Not what we did before, where we went, well, these TikTok people are doing really well because they're dancing in front of a screen, so let's do the same. Let's try and just adapt our own going forward. And I know, Rachel, you are the queen at social media, and you put the rest of us accountants to shame. So what?
Yeah, I think it opens a really good point. Aside from me being terrified of TikTok,
Yeah.
I think there's a reason that we've not really seriously explored that to speak about it really frankly, and that is that when you look at the statistics and you look at the data, as business owners, it's all about where we invest our time. And like, I get asked all the time, who does your marketing? And the answer is me at 10 p.m. So we do all of our own marketing, but a really big part of that is when you do everything yourself, it's about investing your time and looking at where your customers are. So if we're doing that as business owners, and it doesn't matter if you're an accountant or another small business owner, you need to look and analyze the market and look at where your customers are. And if you look at the demographic of TikTok users, 25% of TikTok users are between the ages of 10 and 15. The next 25% are between the ages of 15 and 19. So that's 50% of the individuals that my content is going to get put in front of aren't actually old enough to submit a tax return. So whereas Instagram, the demographic is much higher, and I'm able to put my content really focused and targeted in front of the people that are my potential clients. And whilst TikTok is amazing and you can go viral, does going viral count if 50% of the people it's going to actually are not customers of mine? And that's what's really important to think about. So hopefully that was helpful to the person that asked the question, what do you think of TikTok?
And I think that's really insightful, and it's really good way of looking at it. And it's definitely, you should definitely be pushed by the numbers. The only thing I'd say that is a reason to jump, and the only reason we're even worried about TikTok in the first place is just because certain times you will be asked to be on that platform because of another brand or another partnership or whatever. And you've got to make a decision if that's, if that relationship is worthwhile. But that does mean that you need to have some form of presence on there to be part of that conversation. And it is tricky. And we could do a whole hour of which social platforms are, relevant and which ones are dying and which ones are everything else. But I think it's one of them where we've got to prepare, haven't we? So, Rachel, what is the next question? What else have we got to cover next?
Okay, so this is a good one, and one that I think there's a lot of different things to explore. So somebody's asked, how many different accountants are there? What's the difference and what do they do?
And this is a great question, isn't it? And you did a wonderful video based on this one. And I've seen some really good video content out there on it before, because it's one of those, as an accountant, I think we sometimes forget about how complex the profession is. Yeah. Like, as an accountant, we just take it for granted that we've auditor or we're a bookkeeper or and they're just words that people don't 100% understand and don't 100% realize. But the truth of it is there are so many different avenues for accountancy. But that's one of the things where in one of the latest videos I did is actually a real plus point. Because it gives so much variety to your work. And we've already said, like, clients are weird, wonderful and wacky and amazing, and they give us variety and they keep us going. Yeah. But if you still had all of the same type of a clients and you only focused on one industry, you'll still have a really varied career opportunity, because there's just so much opportunity out there for accountants. So, Rachel, do you want to go through a little bit more detail as to and answering the question in terms of what type of ones are out there and everything else?
Yeah, of course. And I think this is a really important question to talk about, because the reason that people have started creating content around this question is because the answers actually are very hard to find. And I remember when I wanted to become an accountant, like, I would Google things like, what's the difference between AAT and ACCA? And it was tumbleweed. I would Google, like, once I've done AAT, what will my job title be? Or what jobs can I get? Rather than just staring at Indeed, having no idea what my salary expectations were. And I so vividly remember, like, really struggling and not having answers to those questions. So it's so good that the content is now out there, because people have struggled for so long. In terms of the difference, the number one difference between accountants, so if we were like breaking it down, the number one difference at the very top is industry versus practice. So practice is where you are an accountant that works for a firm of accountants, and you have customers that are loads and loads of different business owners. Then you've got industry, and industry is where you work for a firm and you work in their internal accounting department. So as an accountant that works in practice, so a firm of accountants, your role really is surrounded by all of the statutory requirements, mainly that business owners have. So you'll be doing accounts and tax returns, VAT returns, and there's so much more that we offer, but really the essence of our role is surrounded by the compliance and the statutory work. If you move over and then look at industry, when you're working in the finance department of a firm, it's very much looking at the internal accounts, sometimes much more current data. So you might be preparing things like management accounts, which aren't a statutory obligation. They're not required by anybody, but they are used by the business owners and by the board to make really, really strategic decisions. So the number one difference of the different types of accountants is industry versus practice. And then looking at the practice section, within those, you can really, really get specialties in everything. So some practices, so some firms of accountants break down their roles by tax, personal tax, business tax, accounts team, bookkeeping team, VAT team. Other accountancy practices break down by service. So they might have like construction and agriculture, and you can specialize in that way where you do everything start to finish, but for like one niche market. So there's so many different types. And I think in a lot of the videos that I've done where I talk about different roles, different experiences, my number one top tip is to get as much exposure as possible. So if you have gone past the point of getting your first job in an accountancy and you're working in maybe the bookkeeping department of an accountancy practice, network, like be a Tasmanian devil, network everywhere, go to your HR department if there is one, or somebody that deals with HR, and say, I would really, really love to spend a week, a couple of days, or just an hour chatting to the manager of each different department, or I would love to come and do a week's work experience in every single department. Is there any opportunity that I can do that? Because you've got first-hand experience, you're already experienced and you're already part of the firm, and it's the best way to make connections, get experience, so that if you did a week in, I was going to say the audit department, but that probably wouldn't happen. If you did do a week in the accounts department and you really, really loved it, you've made friends with the people that are in that team. You might know the manager, and that will absolutely help you so that when the time comes for you to maybe get a promotion or if a job opens up, it's already there. And experience is the only way you'll know where you want to be, what you like doing, and where your passion is. And that would be my number one top tip, is that if you already work in finance, try and speak and network to as many people as possible. Because I think, and I'm definitely somebody that does this, I always assume that someone will say no, but actually people are nice. Like, despite popular opinion, people are nice, and it's nice to be asked these questions, like even as a manager, as somebody that works in business, it's really nice to be asked. So ask the question. Worst case scenario, they'll say no.
And also, you got to think from the company's point of view, it's in their best interest. Like, when I was working at bigger organizations, it was very much a case of, if I wanted to go into another department, then not only do I learn more skill set in terms of what that department does, and exactly as Rachel says, and trying to understand, how that is if I'm going to go to payroll, for example, but also it means that from an organization point of view, that's quite a cheap resource for them to be able to bring some help in, or to move some around, or to give them some flexibility. That's a really good thing for them. It's going to help their thing. And also they know then that from their development of you're going to give better advice out. So the best example I can think of is I've known a lot of accountants who've got really, really high up and, top 4, they've been to very, very, highest they can go in their profession. But you ask them the simplest of kind of AAT style questions on a trial balance, for example, and they wouldn't have a clue. And that's because they've never had that rounded experience. And if you can get yourself that rounded experience and understand how all of it works together, you may not be an expert by any means in any of those departments if you've only been there a week or for a certain amount of time. But having that knowledge, understanding it, can really, really enhance you and make you a better asset to your organization you're working for. Yeah. Also, if you ever decide to, let's do what me and Rachel did and jump ship and start creating your own business, you'll be perfectly suited because, again, you may not be an expert in how to run a payroll, but you'll know the process and you'll know what to look out for and you'll know how to build a process around it. So, yeah, it is important, and it's important that we as content providers tell people as much as possible and we give as much advice as we can out there, because ultimately that's going to make either a lot of people out there really happy because they've made the right choice, or they've tried accountancy, they've been put in audit, they thought to themselves accountancy is not for them, but they haven't appreciated what else and what other amazing bits that accountancy can bring. And it's evolving.
Always remember, you just be audit you can be.
There's a little merch store pushing there. She's putting links just now. But also do remember though, people, that it's always evolving. The list that Rachel has just given there is correct as of today. In a week's time there could be another role, in a couple of months' time, a year's time. Accountancy, just like every other profession in the world, is changing. So we already see these new little niche types
we'll have
roles.
A crypto department, NFT department. Like it evolves every day. Yeah,
exactly. So it's always changing, but that's a good thing. And the more you can try and keep your little understand it and be having an awareness of it, because one of the best skills you'll ever get out of accountancy is awareness and business awareness. And if you can apply that to also the accountancy world, you are going to be in a great step.
That's such a good point though. Like our job is literally, we get to nosy into people's businesses. We get to see what works, what doesn't work, from company structure to cash flow to personality type, like what works, what doesn't work, which businesses are successful, like what can we see? And it's just amazing. And I think so frequently it's not talked about that, like, being an accountant is probably one of the only jobs that gives you exposure to looking at the insides of people's businesses and trying to work out what works. And it just makes you such an amazing all-rounded platform, so that if you ever wanted to become a business owner, you're really well equipped.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think also, it shows you in the better light as well, because you are being you're investigating yourself. You're showing that to your employer that you want to know what else is out there. You want to know how those roles are. And that's going to come really, really helpful to you when it comes to things like appraisals, talking about next thing, or even if it's a case of, if you're looking to your next step and you're looking to actually have an interview process and they ask you, why are you in bookkeeping? And you've explained that you've had these times in accounts and they're really good. It's going to give you that one step up maybe to another as well. So definitely Rachel's got it spot on. You want to be inquisitive, go out there, have a look at them all that you can. And I promise you won't look back once you start looking at all those ones.
So what's the next question?
The next question is as straightforward as it can be. What does a firm accountant do? So I'm assuming this is for being someone in practice. Rachel,
So good question. And I think the answer actually depends on the size and the structure of the business. So for our business, for example, this time last year, we were a one-man band. We're now a team of 5 that's looking to grow and expand. And our client base has grown by a multiple of 5 in 12 months. So the roles that people do and the jobs that people undertake is very different to where I trained, that was a top 75. There was 100 employees and we had different departments for everything. So generally, as we said before, the role of a firm accountant is predominantly statutory and compliance work. So anything from accounts to tax returns to personal tax returns. And somebody in a role like ours, so all of our accountants have their own portfolio, which is incredible to be able to provide people that are training with their own portfolio of clients. And that really encourages everybody to have really close relationships. So you have clients that are yours rather than jobs that are yours. So you don't just do accounts, you don't just do tax returns, you don't just do VAT returns. You have clients that you work with from start to finish. And we've chosen to structure our business in that way because it really is person-centered. And one of the frustrations that I saw working at a top 75 was that very often business owners felt like they were passed around from person to person for every different job, and the communication just wasn't there. And we really, really love those really close relationships where you can pick up a client and say, oh my God, you got a puppy last time I spoke to you. How's it going? And like one of our clients just had a baby and we sent them a present, and it's those really close relationships that we love. So the role of a firm accountant will very often be different depending on the structure of the business. But for us, our accountants have portfolios. So they'll do everything from bookkeeping to VAT, to then do the accounts, then do the tax return, then do a personal tax return, and then provide advisory services as well. But in bigger firms or in different firms, you might work in the year-end accounts department, you might work in the bookkeeping department, and then you would have more clients, but your role would be doing the same work more frequently. What about you, Aaron? Do you have anything to add? Like how's your business structured in terms of what your accountants do?
Yeah, it's very, very, very similar. And I think that's something that has changed as well. So again, we are back to when I first started. It was very much a case of I was an accounts prep. That's what my role. So I prepared accounts for people. And also on a traditional accounts role, it was very much that you would prepare the return or prepare the accounts, whatever your job role was, or prepare the piece of work, and the actual communication with the client would be through the partner or whoever it was going to be. But that has changed a lot, and for the better. So, doesn't matter what role you are in at the moment, you are more than likely now going to have a much more client focused approach, and you're going to be able to build those relationships and talk and understand. And that is where it really does become a really great part of the job. You'll also find from a firm accountants as well, we're, as I've already alluded to about being asked to change and being asked to look and evolve, we're being asked to do far more different things than we've ever had done before. So, we're being asked to train clients on how to use their software, whereas, and how to use it properly, and how to connect it to different accounts, and how to be able to get the most efficiencies out, and everything else that goes with it. So our role, our actual, what does a firm of accountants do, again, is changing all the time, and for the better. We are getting that opportunity to, become what we want to become in terms of that true business advisory, and we are starting to be able to see the fruits of that change, and starting to see new avenues that we can start learning, and new skill sets that we can start developing as individuals. And my favorite kind of analogy of it, and it is true, but it is still a bit tongue in cheek as well, is that when you ask what does a firm accountant do compared to what does someone in industry do, so we had that definition when Rachel put it in the last question. As a, if you are just working for one particular company, you will be just sat there looking at the same work day in, day out as an industry. That's how it works. But as an accountant, every day is going to be absolutely different for you as a firm accountant. And you're going to have that opportunity to do things differently, and look at things, and have an opportunity to really test your skill sets out there. So, I'm not sure why the question was asked, but hopefully it was to try and encourage someone to go into accountancy. And if you want to have your first taste of it, I highly recommend jumping in at the firm accountant role. Yeah. As we've already said, you get all of those amazing little insights into it, and you definitely won't get bored, which is another stereotypic of accountant, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. The next question is quite a long one. So please bear with me as I read it. I've just set up my new consulting business in April 2021. It's a lifestyle business, so I won't be making much money, and it's more about giving me the means to do more of what I love doing, which is great, and something that we see all the time, right? Probably in time, it will be turning over 50K. Do I set up as a sole trader, a limited company, or is there something else that I'm missing? Someone also said to me to go into partnership with my wife, who doesn't work, but there isn't much that she can do within the business, so it seems morally wrong. I feel like there's quite a lot to unpack. And I guess the first question is sole trader versus limited.
It is, but I think also the point here I think is really good to make here is, you know, if you are out there thinking about, do I become an accountant? Is it boring or anything? Not this proves it's not, because we've been asked one question here, and as Rachel's already said, there is so much to unpack here. But that's the beauty of being an accountant, isn't it? It's investigating. Like already, my spider sense is tingling here, and I'm getting all giddy out of asking and trying to get follow-on questions and follow-up bits and everything else, because that's part of being an accountant, isn't it? It's about us trying to go deeper into, well, what do they mean by this? And let's clarify on that, and let's figure out this and everything else. But to the question itself, we can't go in and tell you exactly to the letter everything you need to know on this channel. But what we can say is sole trader versus limited company, there are your two options. Yes, you can look into partnership, but I think you're absolutely right. That wouldn't work for you. It's not really the method that would go through. But as a limited company, you can kind of create a similar aspect to that, because you can bring your wife on as a shareholder. You can have that, completely legitimately as a shareholder. You can then start looking at making sure that you're utilizing all allowances that are available to every member in the shareholding agreement, and you can make sure that from a tax point of view you are making it as simplified and as efficient as you possibly can. The whole debate though, sole trader versus limited company, one thing I would always urge people to do is not just go down the tax route. There are other considerations to make. So, in this situation, go for it.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, so yeah, you're absolutely right in that this is like such a good example of questions that we get asked all the time, and like they're juicy ones. Like there's like 17 different things to talk about in this question. So the first is sole trader versus limited, and as Aaron said, I feel like we're being very accountancy, being like, it depends. So what I'll do instead, as obviously these questions are anonymous, we actually don't know who asked the question and like what their circumstances are. Instead, I'm just gonna walk you through like the main differences between them and like reasons that we see people choose limited rather than being a sole trader. And then you can run down that list and see if any apply to you. So the first reason we see people incorporate limited companies very often is tax efficiency. But it's really important to say that tax efficiency only comes into play when your profit is a certain figure, when your turnover is at a certain amount, and when your personal tax situation is in a certain way. So the number one reason we see people incorporate limited companies as opposed to being a sole trader is for tax efficiency. The second reason is in the name, limited. So it's limited liability. So for many, many different reasons, that's very attractive to lots of people. So the word limited in limited company means limited liability. It means that what happens in the business is legally separate to you. And that could be because you've got a personal situation that you want to protect. It could be because you've got insurance policies or assets and liabilities in the company that you don't want to work both ways. So that bit is, I'd say, almost as important to think about as tax efficiency is what's the structure of the business. And as a consulting business, the chances are that the risk of liability is quite low. The biggest liability you'll probably have is a tax one rather than an asset or a liability in terms of debt. But the limited liability is something that really works for a lot of people. And sometimes it's a peace of mind thing. And I think, sometimes the efficiencies in the company structure goes out the window. Like if that's what will really help you from a mindset perspective, treat this differently, then it's really important to think about what works for you. And then the third reason we see people incorporate limited companies is almost the status of being a limited company. So we very often see people, so like I work with lots of Etsy people, people within the Etsy community, Amazon businesses and Shopify retailers. And if you're a product-based business, for example, and you're trying to work with wholesalers or win wholesale customers, sometimes you can't even set up a supplier account without having a company number. Like you can't get credit, they won't sell to you, you can't work with them if you don't have a company number. So for some people, it's just a hoop that you have to jump through. So the top three reasons we see people incorporate limited companies are firstly, tax efficiency, secondly, limited liability, and thirdly, the status of being a limited company. But it is important to say that those are all the things that are great about being a limited company, but because the limited liability comes from them being separate legal entities, with great power comes great responsibility. And that legal separation basically creates a whole extra layer of work to do. So as a sole trader, your responsibilities each year are to prepare a set of accounts to work out how much profit you've made, and then to do a tax return to tax those profits. As a limited company, there's a whole extra layer. So in a limited company, you have to do a limited company set of accounts. So the company does a set of accounts, the company does a tax return, and then you as a shareholder and director of the company also have to file a self-assessment tax return to tax the income that you've taken from the limited company personally.
Yeah.
So, sorry, you go.
And all I'm saying is that, well, what I would point to that is the thing about all of this is that, yeah, you're right. You know, cookie cutter response is that go limited because it's cheaper on tax. And that could be right. That could be absolutely spot on for your particular business. But even in this small little example we've got here, the fact it's lifestyle, the fact it's, you know, everything that goes with it, it seems like a sole trader would be a better fit. But the most important thing to kind of take away from this is that, you know, don't go by someone said go into partnership. Was that someone down the local pub or something like that? That's not
the tax advice you get in the pub is my favorite kind of tax.
It's
and the
perfect,
most reliable.
Oh, I've never known anyone get it wrong yet. I mean, I don't know what it is. But it isn't, you know, don't just go and Google the first answer and accept that one. This is an exact point here where every single business is so different. Every single business has so many reasons why limited versus sole trader is going to be the right fit for them. And even as accountants, we can advise someone that limited company is by far the best way, because exactly what Rachel's just said, they tick all of those tick boxes that we've just gone through. And yet for them, sole trader is the one they want to go for, and they've got a legitimate reason for it. And that's fine. And that's absolutely right. But I think here, you know, with this particular question in mind, lifestyle business, wanting to kind of keep it straightforward, don't want the stress. Rachel's just explained beautifully there about how great power comes with great responsibility. You know, maybe for you a sole trader is the right thing, but please, you know, sit down with someone, go through line by line with it, and get the right advice. But yeah, what it really does highlight there is just how great a job it can be being an accountant when you're helping businesses like this, you know, giving them, taking away the anxiety that they've got there of what's right, what's wrong. They may not be sat there losing sleep over this particular question, but you know, with a good consultation, you can get everything set up for them and they can go away feeling much better.
100%. And even the bit about the wife, his wife,
exactly.
their wife, is all about like, and the people in the pub don't have bad intentions, but it's kind of like Chinese whispers. So like, are they talking about a marriage allowance, which is where if your wife doesn't work, you can transfer part of your tax-free allowance each year to your spouse and they can utilize that too. Do they mean that? Or do they mean actually setting up a partnership? Or do they mean incorporating your wife into your company structure to try and make it more efficient? And those are really conversations where, and it's important to find an accountant that you feel really comfortable with having those conversations. Like, we're not the police. We're not here to tell you that it's wrong. We're here to tell you what your options are and what the guidance is, what the legislation is, what's legal and what's not legal. And it's there for you. So even that piece about the wife is a whole different question, right? And we actually had a follow-up question to this question. So follow-up question from before: with the new business, there is not much money coming in at the moment, so I'm keeping costs as low as possible, which again is great. It gives us more information to help make the decision. When do I have to appoint an accountant? I don't have many transactions because business costs are pretty low too.
Yeah, I mean, these are the sort of questions as well where getting this follow-up element here just opens up even more elements that we can definitely help with and definitely bring in. The whole bit there, I think that stands out for me more than anything is the whole question, when do I appoint an accountant? Because it is one of those questions where it gets asked so many times. And the truth of the matter, and you know, a lot of accountants don't want me to tell you this, but the truth of the matter is you don't have to have an accountant. There is no legal reason for you to have an accountant. not by law. It's not that you'll go to jail if you don't have an accountant or anything like that. The term for putting a tax return in is called self-assessment, which says it all. It is about you creating your own assessment of of what taxes you are due. So if you don't want to have an accountant, you do not have to have an accountant. And Rachel's done a great ebook on how to complete a tax return all by yourself. And she's an author of that one. I've done videos on how to complete a tax return all by yourself. As accountants, we are not here to force your hand to become to have an accountant. What we as an accountants do is we want to add value to that. So the question of when do I have to appoint an accountant should be more of a question is, what would I benefit from bringing on an accountant?
Yeah, so that's exactly the same as you, Aaron, get asked this question 17 times a day. When do I have to appoint an accountant? And the answer is when you want to. And like you say, Aaron, it's not our job to terrify you and beat you with a terrifying stick to make you have an accountant. It's our job to really, really help you understand our value. And it could be that you very, very quickly realize that, oh, my accountancy fees are tax deductible. Done. There's so many different ways that we add value, but it's really important to know as a business owner, especially as a brand new business owner, where cost efficiency actually sometimes is more important than anything else. It's really important to know, A, that you don't need an accountant, and B, get one when you want one. And it's so easy to be terrified. And if you Google that question, I guarantee Google Ads will not help you, because the first 5 things will be accountants coming up and trying to make you feel really difficult. So maybe Googling it makes it feel really scary. And I think it's really important to have people like us talking about the fact that you don't need an accountant. And actually, it's our job to make you feel so comfortable that you come to us when you decide that you do need one. And that's me and Aaron are on the same page when it comes to that.
Exactly. And especially when one of the points in here is I'm trying to keep as low as possible. Well, first advice as being an accountant would be don't spend unnecessarily if you don't have to. So, we shoot ourselves in the foot there, but it's the right thing to do. Like, if I have a client who would be better off spending the money elsewhere, it's our job to tell them that, and it's our job to make sure that they are, doing what's right. COVID, the pandemic, has all proven the fact that, we've got to do things right for our clients. We've got to make sure that they're prepared for it as best as possible. But it's a really, really valid question of when do I have to appoint an accountant? And as we've already said, and we will say time and time and time again, it won't be the last time we're asked this question, but it's not. There is no when, it's why, and what benefit will you get from it? So yeah,
amazing,
wonderful. And I think with that, is that our final question for our first
question
of the Going Concern checklist, shout. So thank you for your questions, everybody. If you're listening via a podcast, don't forget to follow us on social channels so you can get to join us live for one of our future episodes. And just like people have asked now, opportunity to ask questions as well. Which reminds me, Rachel, when are we back?
We are back on the 1st of July, so you can head into a brand new month, get all of your accounting questions answered. Don't forget to submit your questions via the link that I'm about to pop in the chat box wherever you're watching this question. Done. It's gone. Please submit your questions. It's me and Aaron both receive the questions directly to our inbox whenever people submit them, and it's very distracting, and I'm having a great time.
100%, Rachel. Well, thank you for finally convincing me to come along this journey with you. I'm already finding this is definitely well worth investment of time and everything else. So, Rachel, have you got any videos planned for this week? What's your or next 2 weeks, should I say? What have you got coming up on your wonderful video? And I must say, while we're here, if you haven't already, make sure you watch Rachel's video she posted today about her journey from a shed to an actual working office. Is highly recommended. But Rachel, what other videos have you got planned?
Yeah, so today we release Shed to Shed Quarters. Every Thursday we release brand new content on our YouTube channel. My TED Talk is being released in the next 2 weeks, so I'm very excited about that. And I also run Study With Me sessions. So every Tuesday every Thursday and every Saturday. You can live stream study with me on the internet for accountability, some company, or just a bit of fun. I ask questions and we do live chat, and we really, really have a good time. What about you, Aaron? What have you got coming up?
So QuickBooks Labs will happen each and every other Thursday. So Tuesday, where we talk about everything to do with QuickBooks. So if you are interested in QuickBooks whatsoever, do get yourself over to there. And the video I want to pick out that we hope is going to be out in the next 2 weeks is we're going down the day in the life of. We're finally doing it. Yeah, it's happening. It's been highly requested.
Whose day? Is it your day?
My day, yeah. And we finally got round to start to film it. So let's see how it goes.
What day is it? I'm going to be really annoyed.
Well, I've got a bit of a thing. I've got multiple hats. So I'm doing a day in the life of accountant, day in the life of a QuickBooks trainer, and then we'll see if there are ever other ones we're going to bring in as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's one of those videos that I've been putting off for a long time. So it's about time, gave the audience what they wanted. Okay, Rachel, thank you so much for today. Thank you for giving up the time. Thank you to every single person who has put their questions in, watch, subscribe, comment the lot. I really do appreciate it. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. So it is a goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Cheers, everybody.